Welcome to another episode of the News Review. I am Vina Peters. At the heart of community development, the ability to uplift and support every member, particularly those facing unique challenges, is paramount. Recognizing this, initiative focused on empowering and bolstering support for the vulnerable have become critical components of our shared journey. Right here at the University of Lagos, a dedicated safeguarding center has been established for the vulnerable. This unit is at the forefront of creating a safe and supportive environment for students facing various challenges. Today on the program, we will be speaking with the director of the Safeguarding Center from the University of Lagos. Let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's still the news review on Unilag TV. Remember to follow us across all social media platforms at Unilag on TV. Earlier, I said we will be speaking with Professor Mukwelola Olushaki, the director of the Safeguarding Center at the University of Lagos. Welcome to the program, Professor.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Okay, so quickly, Unilag Safeguarding Center, what is it all about?
Thank you very much. The Unilag Safeguarding Center is an initiative of our very compassionate Vice Chancellor, the first female Vice Chancellor of University of Lagos, Professor Folashade Tolulope Ogunshola. She said she would like that we have a safeguarding center that will cater for the vulnerable people, both students and staff, and also visitors to the university. Those who are abused one way or the other, or those who have certain needs and they are distraught, that they should have a place to go where they will be accepted, where they could open up and know that no one is going to condemn them as they speak. So May 2nd this year, the center was established by her.
Okay, so what specific services and support does the safeguarding unit actually render to students facing various challenges?
We render counseling, we render preventive measures. When people come to us and they express their fears, we try to interview them and see the reasons behind what they are telling us. And then we together look at a way of not entering into trouble that they are trying to foresee. But for those who had already been abused, we look for a way of comforting them, and also we try to investigate. We are working in conjunction with security people. We are working with the medical center. We are working with the counseling unit of the University of Lagos, and also with the Dean of Students. We are also not leaving out the various faculties, and we are going to have safeguarding officers in the faculties.
Okay, we know that this unit is actually a very new establishment.
Yes.
So, what is your plan for awareness?
Yes, right now not many people are really aware of the center. So this is part of the awareness creation uh, mechanism that we have thought about. We are also going to have a day that we are going to move around campus and talk to people about safeguarding center and what we do. But before then, with the approval of the vice chancellor, we are going to have safeguarding officers in the various faculties, like I said, and also at the medical center and at the security post.
Okay, so how does in terms of I'm looking at the students now,
Mm-hmm.
because not most people will want to come and talk about what exactly it is that they are going through because of their fear of the term confidentiality.
We
Now,
keep we keep secret at the safeguarding center. It's part of our ethics.
so how do they actually feel comfortable? Because I have to be sure that I will be comfortable, that my secret will be safe here. How do you express such in such a way that these students know that okay, if I do come here, they do keep my secret?
The number one thing that the vice chancellor had done is to give us the office space at a very remote area at the academic publishing center. She said so that people could be free to come and they will not be labeled. And it's a beautiful place. We have a portion there. You need to visit us. That is very beautiful. And when they come, people have been coming, both students and staff have been coming. When they come, we attend to them confidentially, one by one, or we have seen a group that came and they decided that we should speak to them one by one first, then um, as a group. When I say we, for now, I'm the one doing the work alone, but we're going to also have safeguarding officers in the center who, if I'm not around, would also do. And um, our admin officer is also from psychology. She has psychology background and mass comm, and she's being trained to be a safeguarding officer right now.
Okay.
She's undergoing training.
Okay, it's a good thing you actually mentioned that because I was actually going to ask you about your staff strength.
Yes, for now we are just three in
Okay.
number. For
So,
now,
okay. So who's the third person?
he's a PA.
Okay. And will he or she also be attending to students as well?
When they come, she's the first point of call. They will see her first, and then she would introduce whosoever to us, to any of us.
Okay.
But we are still, I'm also going to train her
Okay.
concerning safeguarding because the issue of confidentiality is very key.
Okay. We know that today that there are actually many NGOs who are at the forefront of actually providing care when it comes to abuse, harassment, and the likes. And we know that most of their staff are those that have gone through those processes and have actually healed in order to give a support system to those that are coming. Now, um, in terms of your staff or your group, are they just going to be merely professionals or?
Yes, as we have just started, as we move on, we are going to take on more things to do. We are going to see ways that we could help those who have come out of their trauma. Because for some of them, maybe there is post-traumatic issue with them, and we need to attend to that. So, but at times we might need to refer.
Okay.
Yes. For those who are on drugs, you will need to refer them to the hospital where they will take more information and treat them. and then they will come back to us. If we see how they are behaving, we might refer them to rehabilitation center.
Okay.
We don't need to set up rehabilitation center, but we could
Okay.
refer.
Oh, okay. Okay. In terms of stigmatization,
Mm.
how is the center planning to create that space for students to know that, okay, um, this is an open center, I can actually do trust them, and I will not be labeled?
Yes, the issue of trust and confidentiality is very key, because if you can't trust someone, then you won't open up. So for them to be able to open up, we are going to assure them that whatever they are telling us will not go beyond us. And if there might be need for it to go beyond our office, for example, when we need to refer, we get the consent of the client first before we do the reference. Otherwise, the referral will not work. Because if you refer someone and the person is not cooperating with you, you have just done your own referral, that person will not go. You will not. But when you get the person to agree with you concerning referral, then that particular person will cooperate
Very true.
and go.
Okay, that is actually very, very nice to hear. I'm going to be talking more about the center now, as it is. I know that it is a new center. Could you please tell us what is the vision and mission of the center?
Our vision is to see a group of students of University of Lagos who are free from abuse and neglect. And our mission is to work hand in hand with those who are in charge and in control of the different aspects of these students' lives. You know, I told you, like the medical center, like the student affairs, like the counseling center, like security posts, because there has to be a synergy. At times, what is happening there, we don't have feedback. We don't know who and who the list of those who have been taken there and what had happened to them. We will follow up. We will follow up. So it's part of our mission to make sure that we follow up with these various aspects and have a university that is free of pains.
Okay.
Because all these things, they cause pains. The abuse, the abuse in various forms, you know, sex for marks, and those who for one reason or the other, they are just labeled. Like there was a case that they told me, I was chairman of the counseling center for years, and there was a case of a student that was wrongly accused of stealing. And do you know she committed suicide because of that? And that is another aspect. Suicide tendency among our students is very rampant. And we want to be able to curb that. How will we do that? We would talk to them when they're having their orientation. We would create awareness among them that there is nothing happening to you that is not common to man. And you don't need to kill yourself. There is always a way around it. There is a way for you to live a joyful life. And where there is will, there will be a way.
Yeah.
So we would create hope for the hopeless.
Okay. You also mentioned counseling unit as part of those you'll be working with.
Yes.
And I know that counseling unit also deals with similar issues like that. So my question now is, what is the functional difference between the Unilag Safeguarding Center and the counseling unit?
You know, I'm a counseling psychologist.
Okay.
Now, at the counseling unit, the limitation is we don't, like I said, we will work with security sector. The counseling center is not allowed to do that. When they come to you, even when it's a security case, you need to work with your client. It will be a breach of confidence for you to go to security post to go and see what is happening there. And this safeguarding center is an international requirement, which is very new. A lot of universities now in the UK are keen into it, in the US, but not many yet. So in Nigeria, I think we are the only university, apart from, I think they said American University in Yola is also doing it, has started. Then Lagos State is doing safeguarding now. So the difference is that we do counseling plus. We don't just counsel, we look at the way that those students will fit into the school environment again. And even when the thing had not happened, we are already looking for ways that the thing should not happen. We try to prevent, to protect, and to guide. So that prevention is always better than cure. So at the center, we would, from time to time, train people, even in the faculties, to know that there are people who are going through things. If you identify certain traits, or you look at people and you are seeing them being in pains, you can refer them to come see us. And so it's similar to counseling, but it's much more than that.
Okay.
It's much more than just for us to counsel them. And the counseling center is doing a great job in conjunction with the student affairs unit. The dean of students is burdened with a lot of all these issues. And there is no how that the counseling unit as it is now can cater for 30-something thousand students. There is no how. Even the safeguarding center, like I told you, people have been coming, but a lot of them don't want their names written down because of labeling.
Exactly.
So we still cancel, but we go beyond that to see what we can do, and to even see that they don't enter into such challenges as they go through the 4 walls of the university. We also deal with visitors to the university.
Okay.
Those who visit and they have issues, they are allowed to come into our offices and ask questions, and we will guide them. We will safeguard them.
That's actually very nice to hear. So I'm looking at sustainability. How sustainable do you think this is? Or should I better say, where do you see the safeguarding center in the next 3 years?
In the next 3 years, I see the safeguarding center being bigger than it is now. I see it having effect in all the faculties in Akoka and Idiaraba. I see it affecting the lives of people positively on this campus. And I continue to mention both students and staff, because a lot of staff also have challenges. And when they know that they could come, they feel happy that they could come. And what we will try to do is to train people, because there has to be sustainability. There has to be continuity.
Exactly.
So we will train people, and as they are coming up, they also will be training more and more people. We are at the teaching stage, but we know that we continue to move forward and forward. Rome was not built in a day, but we continue to get better and better as we move forward.
Okay. So As the first director of the center, what mark would you want to leave behind as a legacy?
I want people to remember that there has been a director who loved people and who, no matter what your challenge is, will not condemn you, and who is willing and always ready to help, and who also wants the best for both students and staff of University of Lagos and visitors to University of Lagos.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you, ma'am.
Been a pleasure being with you also.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I'm happy to be with you, to be able to talk about our center. And I hope you will help us to still create more awareness concerning our center.
Definitely.
We are passionate about the center, and my admin officer is also very passionate about the center.
No problem, bro.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Lillian will be very glad to hear this in the as we go forward.
Okay, well.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So we've been speaking with the director of the Safeguarding Unit in person of Professor Mokwelola Olushakin. And that's how far we can go on our program for today. Do join us next week for another episode. I am Vina Peters. Bye for now. Hello, I am Vina Peters, and you're watching the news update on Unilag TV. Now, we begin with our community. The Institute of African and Diaspora Studies, RADS, at the University of Lagos recently revealed the recipient of the prestigious Rahman Bello Best PhD Thesis Award for 2023. This notable accolade recognizes emerging intellectuals who
On that note of excitement,
critical African and diaspora issues, honoring the legacy of Professor Rahman Bello, the former Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, with funding provided by his friends and associates. During the announcement, Professor Muiwa Falaye, Director of IADS, highlighted the award's significance and outlined the application criteria, as well as detailed prizes for winners in different categories. Stressing the impartiality of the assessors in the selection process, he noted that the final decision took less than 30 minutes. Dr. Charles Akwan secured the position of the second runner-up, followed by Dr. Oluwaseyi Popo-Ogbe as the first runner-up. The highlight of the event was the coronation of Dr. Muhammad Ribadu Ayuba as the winner, representing Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. His groundbreaking thesis, The Social Context of Gentrification in Lagos State, Nigeria, triumphed over submissions from various universities. Dr. Ayuba's pioneering research significantly reshapes African and diaspora studies, marking a milestone in academia. Now away from our community and into education, Gateway Polytechnic, Sakwade, Ogun State, is grappling with a disturbing surge in robbery attacks, prompting students to voice their concerns and frustrations. In the latest incident on Friday night, December 1st, a tragic turn of events unfolded as a student from the Public Administration Department, identified as Shegun, lost his life after being shot during the attack. In response to the alarming security situation, students staged a protest to express their displeasure, highlighting the vulnerability of their hostels to criminal activities. The students lamented the school's apparent inaction despite their complaints, accusing the institution of addressing issues solely through the arbitrary hike of school fees. Speaking with a student, he emphasized on the severity of the situation, describing how the persistent robberies near the school have disrupted the peace, preventing students from having peaceful nights, stating that the daily robberies have reportedly led to tragic consequences, with students losing their lives in confrontations with the armed robbers. The distressing report also indicates that female students are subjected to robbery, gang rape, and in some cases, fatal outcomes, with instances of recording and blackmailing adding to the grim realities faced by the student community. The escalation of such incidents has created a palpable atmosphere of fear and urgency within the campus community. And still on education, Professor Anthony Adegbulugbe, the Chief Executive of Green Energy Limited, has been named as the third Chancellor of Joseph Ayo Babalola University in Ikeji, Arakeji, Osun State. The formal installation of Professor Adegbulugbe as Chancellor is scheduled for December 8, 2023. In addition to his leadership role in Green Energy Limited, Professor Adegbulugbe is an ordained pastor of the Christ Apostolic Church and possesses extensive experience as an accomplished energy expert in both the public and private sectors in Nigeria and internationally. This appointment adds to Professor Adegbulugbe's recent honors, as he was previously recognized by Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, in June. He was presented with the inaugural University Award of Excellence in Research Practice, a prestigious acknowledgement highlighting his outstanding knowledge-based accomplishment on global and national scales. The recognition underscores his significant contributions to research in the energy sector. And more on education. Now, Summit University in Offa, Kwara State has announced its upcoming historic maiden combined convocation ceremony. The Vice Chancellor, Professor Abiodun Abinu, shared the news during the virtual press interactive session. The four-day event is scheduled to kick off on Wednesday, December 6, 2023, featuring the unveiling of numerous achievements and future goals. On the 7th of December, a convocation lecture titled Revitalizing the Nigerian Economy, the Roles and Responsibilities of the Youth in the Digital Economy will be delivered by the guest lecturer, the Governor of Borno State, Professor Babagana Umara. Additionally, the ceremony will include the launch of Summit University's offers a 5 billion naira development plan and the groundbreaking ceremony for the Senate building. The university aims to make this convocation a momentous occasion with significant milestone and insight into its future endeavors. And lastly, on the bulletin, but in entertainment. In a significant moment for the global film community, the Edo State International Film Festival, ESIF, successfully concluded its second edition with a spectacular awards ceremony. Head juror Victor Okai shared the exciting news of a record-breaking 3,000 entries from 196 countries, affirming ESIF's status as a diverse hub of cinematic talent. From November 30th to December 2nd, the festival provided a platform for showcasing exceptional talents across various categories. Notably, Ijeoma Josephina Otabo, also known as Fina, emerged as the winner in the Best Female Actress category for her role in the film Osato. The award ceremony was not just a recognition of filmmakers globally, but also an acknowledgement of the richness and diversity within the global cinematic landscape. Congratulations are extended to all the winners, with special commendation to Fina for her outstanding performance in Osato. And that's it on the bulletin. Thanks for joining us on the news update on Unilag TV. Do remember to follow us across all social media platforms at Unilag on TV. I am Vina Peters. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Life moves in a fast and slow pace. There are highs and there are lows. Through this constant flux, there are people that will definitely be affected by such changes in the society. On today's episode of Blooming Health, we explore the world of post-traumatic stress disorder, otherwise known as PTSD, with Dr. Kafayat Ogunshola. I'm Jennifer Ligwe. Welcome to Blooming Health.
There are various mental disorders that we have, but the three major ones I want to mention is we have bipolar, we have depression, and we have schizophrenia.
Depression, I think bipolar.
I'm only sure of the common one, that's just bipolar disorder and depression.
We have like bipolar disorder, we have like schizophrenia, we have depression.
Devastating moments like heartbreak. For some people, they can't do it better than others. And economical reasons, crisis, financial crisis. Even for students, they find it difficult to handle lecturer stress, coping with series of activities in school, then getting bad results, handling it. Some can handle it better than others. I think those ones are really rare, but they are also part of it.
A lot of emotional stress and mental stress on a victim. Even the normal day-to-day life activities, some people can't handle it, and they are breaking down from this emotional stress. So most times it tends to lead to these mental disorders.
We have the situation where substance abuse, like currently now what we are having in most cases now in mental disorder is substance abuse. A lot of youth engage in so many substance abuse, using tramadol, excessive of it, all kind of narcotics, or many of them. You understand? So most of all these things result in mental disorder.
Okay, the one that is more prevalent in Nigeria is substance abuse. For example, among youth, when they abuse drug substances like codeine, so some pills like Refnol, they tend to be in a depressed state. So whenever they're in a depressed state, they feel better and they feel good, and that depressed. But when it's prolonged, when they abuse the substances a very long period of time, they tend to be in they tend to have depression.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is a form of anxiety disorder, and it is a psychological response. So, in as layman's terms as I can bring it, it's a psychological response that is seen in an individual who has gone through a seriously distressing and traumatizing life event. This traumatic life event is usually of very high, magnitude and intensity, and most often it would have impacted negatively on the mental health and the physical state of that individual. To bring it more home, so we can talk about an individual suddenly finding themselves in a life or death situation, like in a road traffic accident, and the symptoms would usually start to manifest about 6 months after experiencing that traumatic life event. Prior to that, psychiatrists like myself would make a diagnosis of an acute stress reaction, an acute stress disorder, But anything 6 months afterwards, you're beginning to look at a post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, a traumatic event would be any situation that threatens to overwhelm the capacity of an individual to cope, both mentally, physically, spiritually, economically. So it is a whole lot of dynamics that is involved. It's not just something threatens the integrity of that individual, maybe physically. It could be like you actually having like something really frightening happening to you that threatens your mental state. A loss of something, an object that is very worthy to you, that can be like, in the economic sense of it. So a very traumatic life event that, threatens to overwhelm you. And such individuals in that time, they need urgent or prompt intervention around any of those domains that you find it happening, for them so that they don't further deteriorate in terms of their mental and their physical state. So because you have narrowed it down now to everyday life, so we should look at things that would happen in our immediate environment, So house fire, so a building that burns down, and like I mentioned before, and I would like to emphasize on it, situations of, that threatens the integrity of self, like rape, assault, even just being robbed or mobbed on the street, or being confronted with a weapon that can kill you. Those are things that bring it to the fore. And then domestic violence, very important. People who have experienced this and have survived domestic violence actually can manifest symptoms of PTSD. Those are not of significant proportion to, these are things that individuals will learn to cope with as they are exposed to it. The event has to be sudden, it has to be profound, it has to be threatening, it has to be overwhelming for it to be of the magnitude to cause PTSD. And the fear that is involved in it, so a life-death situation, a close shave with death. PTSD, like I said before, it's a form of anxiety disorder, and then the symptoms psychiatrists or clinical psychologists to look out for would involve some of these things that I'll mention. So there's something called the hyper-aroused state or hyper-arousal. In that state, the individual becomes hyper-vigilant. It's as though they now begin to look out or keep, vigil for something bad that is about to happen to them. So you can find them not sleeping well, you can find them pacing, and there's something called the exaggerated startle reflex, a minimum or very small movement or sound in the environment and you see them jump in a startle, alright? You can also find them very restless and pacey, like I said before. And there's another one called avoidance. For avoidance, you find such individuals making or taking active steps to avoid being in an environment that reminds them of what has happened to them in the past. So for someone who had a ghastly motor accident and survived it, would now take conscious effort not wanting to enter a car again, okay? Or they don't even want anything that might trigger the memory. So it's a form of avoidance and it's a way of coping for the, with what they are exposed to or what they had been exposed to. Also, you have amnesia. Amnesia comes in the form of a total or complete or partial loss, memory loss for the event. So you might be trying to work on an individual who had a ghastly motor accident, and they tell you they cannot remember that it ever happened to them. So it's not because they are trying to feign it, but that's a way, it's a mechanism that their body has developed or their mind has developed to help them manage what they went through. So it's a way of totally forgetting what they went through. You also have something called reliving the event. In reliving the event, it can be in two modalities. You can find people either, having pictorial and vivid flashbacks of the event. So they're not in the same situation where it happened, but they now have, it replays in their mind like they're actually still confronted with that particular traumatic situation. Or it can be in the form of dreams as nightmares. So they also have vivid recalls or vivid dreams about that event, and so you can see them suddenly waking up from sleep and crying out in their sleep, alright, or shouting in their sleep. And then you can find them waking up in that state, drenched in sweat, sweating, having very racy heartbeats, so palpitations, changes in their heartbeat, so they can go on to have panic attacks, And then you can also have another set of symptoms. There's something called the emotional numbing. Such people, you might find that they have changed from who you know them to be. They're not as emotionally reactive or reacting as you'd expect them to be. So they withdraw into their shell. Okay, it's like as though they're still in a daze, or there is just a profound change that is noticed by other people around them. And then you can also have like a total change in their personality. So somebody who you know to be a very happy-go-lucky person suddenly becomes somebody who is very aggressive all of a sudden and very irritable and very quick to anger. So the littlest thing would just trigger a fuse in them. Okay, so you can notice like the personality change in them. And then some of them would now start using substances to cope, like alcohol, marijuana, cocaine, and other hard drugs as a way of coping. So it's like a total change in who you used to know and the new person that has evolved as a result of PTSD. So those are some of the symptoms that you would find that would manifest and suggest post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, so that's very easy for all of us to deduce. I just mentioned the different modalities in how PTSD would affect an individual. The mental state of that individual begins to suffer. All right, so they might even have problems focusing, paying attention at work, and all of that. So the next thing is, there is so much effort in going to work, they withdraw from work, so they might not want to go to work anymore. All right, if you're not working, your finances begin to suffer. All right, if you're having so much anxiety that you have not handled, how does that impact the relationship with your spouse? So you can see that there begins to be a disconnect between partners or spouses, and of course, children would also be affected because now they cannot relate with whoever is suffering, either if it's their mother or their father, in that way that they used to relate to them. So on many grounds, it will affect the individual personally, around their family functions, around their occupational functions, and even in their interaction with society as a whole. Somebody who used to be, very friendly, very outgoing, friends with many, begins to withdraw. So even in their social interactions and their ability to contribute to society begins to suffer. To just bring it now again to the family. So family function is one thing that is likely to be very to be damaged when an individual has PTSD. It affects relationship with spouse, it affects relationship with children. If the person happens to be the breadwinner of the family, you can imagine that finances begin to dwindle and suffer. If this person was somebody who was also like the peacemaker or somebody that tied family together, you can imagine that family relationships would suffer. So in that form, you can project it and into other areas of this individual's life and the family member's life. If it was the person who was, the one that related or interacted more with the children, took them to school, attended. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So on a very wide net, casting the net is really far. It will affect a lot of family members and family interactions. As with support in everyday life, so you now imagine somebody who now really needs that support. Support is very key and it is very, very important. Okay, individuals who know somebody who has had PTSD can contribute or can, support in their own little way by helping such an individual to talk. Helping them just to talk about it when they are willing to talk, being that listening ear, and being as empathetic and understanding as possible, and not judging them for maybe the wrong decisions that they made that might have contributed to it. So for example, one thing that is quick that we know is maybe when a young lady has been raped, the first thing you ask is, what were you doing there, or what were you wearing? That doesn't take care of the matter at that time. So it's not time to now make retrospective judgments. You want to be as open, as much as possible to that person. When the person is talking, listen, support, validate their experiences. It's also important for people to know that it's okay to suggest that people get help. Okay, and if it's somebody that is really close to you, who you have some form of accountability over, you can actually be the one to make the step, or initiate that step and make sure that ensures that this person gets help. And other things like just making sure that their food and their nutrition, their hydration is also taken care of. So more or less, just be that supportive person and not the person that judges them for what they want to do. When an individual has gone through all that we have mentioned, and then it is imperative that they get help, there are facilities to get help, and I'd recommend a teaching hospital setting where they can get all the diverse specialists that are going to be involved in their care. So the support systems involved would include a psychiatrist, so that's a doctor who specializes in mental health and behavioral disorders, and then there's the role of use of medications to control some of the symptoms that I mentioned, particularly the physiological reactions to the event. You also there's a very vital role that clinical psychologists play. They work with helping the individual to cope with what they have been exposed to, and then helping them to rechannel and to restructure some of their thinking patterns. All right. There's also the role of a social worker who can investigate, the living environment of this individual and enforce that certain, modifications or changes can be made to their environment. Well, I guess as with everybody who has maybe one emotional illness or a mental illness or the other, because it is poorly understood, a lot of things are begin to, a lot of people would offer suggestions in the line of maybe it's a spiritual attack or it's something that can be managed, in other ways, not necessarily paying attention to the fact that it's a medical disorder, that has been documented far and wide, and people just need to go to the right settings, to get help. Another thing that might be a misconception might be that people might say whoever develops post-traumatic stress disorder is because they are weak, they're weak in person or they're weak in religion, and that after all, you're not the only person that has gone through similar situations. Why are you manifesting this? No two persons are the same, and people have different ways of being able to cope, and somebody else might not be coping just as well as another person, is why they're not developing certain disorders. So the key thing to know is if anybody goes through any life, any traumatic event, there is role or there is a place for therapy in helping them to deal with their problems so that it doesn't become a disorder. Yeah, that's very important because many people who have gone through certain situations like this in the past just found a way of coping with it or just dealing with it, even though they were not dealing with it very well. Okay, so PTSD is something that can endure for a long time, and you can imagine what damage it will cause that person on several domains in their lives. Okay, so I mean, it's not perfect if such people now come down with full-blown clinical depression. So other than having PTSD, they can have core symptoms of depression. They can even begin to contemplate suicide. So suicide can be one of the complications of the end result of someone that has PTSD. Then another very important one is substance abuse. People who are dealing with such turbulent emotional states can actually begin to use substances as a way of them to cope. So you find them heavily using alcohol, and suddenly become somebody who has to take alcohol before they're able to sleep at night. They begin to take marijuana so that they can dampen their emotional experiences. They can take cocaine because that gives them a high and makes them to forget their problems. So drug abuse or drug dependence is something that now can come out of the fact that somebody has PTSD. Diet is very good. Eat well, eat greens and veg and fruits. You all know all of those things. Eat more of the browns than the whites. Exercising at least maybe 3 times a week for say 30 to 45 minutes. These are things people talk about. Also having a relationship that is confiding, somebody that you can onboard into, somebody who can reassure you when things seem to be going awry or not the way you want it to go. Just generally having, focusing more on the positives than on the negatives. These are just things to help improve somebody's mental wellness or well-being. But it's not what you're going to be preaching to somebody who is already going through their own psychological challenges. So I think there is more that needs to be done, definitely. I think there is more that needs to be done. okay, if I would always make reference to the Itafaji building collapse because I know the Department of Psychiatry, yeah, but we tried to play a role at that time. You know, we went there to see how we could offer first and psychological aid to people who had been, you know, victims of the building collapse. But you could see that we were not prepared. I mean, it was a last-minute thing, and that we did it with so much urgency. We were not as coordinated as we should be. So there should be a preparedness for things like this. I mean, disasters happen. Nobody can predict it, you know. And you can imagine that there are some places in Nigeria where there is ongoing situations like this. People of the northeast, constant rape, you know, the bomb blast, and these are things people see all the time. I don't know how much psychological, you know, aid is available to them, but these are things that we need to put and then be prepared for as a nation. These are things that should be on the front burner. There should be teams that are, you know, in place so that when there is anything like this happening in any part, people are dispatched to help, you know, people and then provide all the psychological and social support that they need, other than the physical support. You know, because I mean, the first thing is the physical support has to be there. You have to be sure that they're taken away from, they're removed to a place of safety in a hospital. Their medical and their physical state has to be put in place. Like I mentioned before, all these things, if an individual would die, they will have died in the first 24 to 48 hours. PTSD is not likely to kill, and it doesn't even manifest immediately. It comes 6 months after. So it's after this person has even been medically stabilized, all right, and taken care of. That's when psychiatrists and clinical psychologists can come up later and say, okay, this person, we need to watch out for symptoms of PTSD in them, and then possibly intervene when it does manifest. Forcing people to commit suicide. Yeah, I get that the society is bad, and things are really hard, and there's so much insecurity all over the place. But I don't think anything forces anybody to commit suicide. That's the truth, or to take their life as suicide. It's a situation everybody has found themselves. But one thing that we need to know is that, you know, research has shown that suicide is more related to mental health, you know, disorders or mental conditions. So about 90% of people who take their lives by suicide or attempt to do so actually have an emotional disorder which has not been diagnosed. So the leading cause of suicide remains emotional disorders. Okay, so you cannot have the remaining 10% that is contributed to by, you know, other factors. So this would also be impacting anyway on the mental health of these individuals. So you can talk about relationship issues, which actually ranks very high on those who actually commit suicide for other reasons. So it's not even the financial or the economical reasons that people are quick to push to the front. It's actually more of, you know, relationship issues, academic problems in students that makes them to commit suicide even before finances comes on the scale of reasons why people kill themselves. So we need to talk about things like resilience, you know, ability for people to bounce back, ability for people to, you know, deal very well or positively with whatever situations that they are dealing with, and for everybody to just know ultimately that there is hope, you know, things would get better, and that suicide does not have to be the option or the way out of the problem. And many people who actually take their lives by suicide, you know, really do not want to die. They just wanted that pain to end. Whatever that pain is, they just wanted that pain to end. They didn't want to die. Okay, so there's a role for everybody to play, and that's the truth. About 5-6 years ago, I don't think that mental health discussion was this, you know, common amongst Nigerians. But it's the reality of the situation right now. Many more people are beginning to be aware that there are conditions that fall within the category of mental health disorders, and that's something that everybody should take on. That's like, you know, advocacy for mental health. Talking more about it, raising awareness for it, sharing stories so that other people can relate and people can find strength and say, oh, I went through that. They can identify with other people's experiences, and that they can use similar solutions that these people used when they had their own problems, you know, as a way of solving their own problems. So this is everybody talk about it more, encourage people to talk about it, reduce stigma. I mean, if somebody says, I go to a psychiatric clinic, it's not time to throw cruel jokes or banters around and make, you know, untoward comments or judgmental comments. Mental disorders are what they are. It's a medical conditions, and anybody at any time can actually have it. There's no immunity to it, you know. being a child, you're not immune to it. Adults are not immune to it. The rich, they're not immune to it. The poor are not immune to it. So religious, irrespective of religious affiliations or belongings or beliefs, you can also have an emotional disorder. So we need to also have that disconnect to understand that it's a medical condition. Just like people have hypertension, diabetes, cancer, people can have any type of emotional disorder like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, all right, and even drug abuse. All right, so there is definitely ongoing work, ongoing research. Research would tell you the conditions of the people, would bring you what causes the problem and how to, to go around it. There's also, already existing evidence-based ways of treating, So the role of medications that the psychiatrist would use medications such as, I mentioned before. We can also give them antidepressants to help them to control their mood problems. And then if there is instabilities in the mood, we can give things that the medications we call the mood stabilizers. All right. Also, there are medications to improve sleep for those of them who are not sleeping well. And then there is also the role that the clinical psychologist play. You see, I keep referring to clinical psychologists because we work in a team, as team workers. So we don't manage patients independently of the other. All right, because we know that it's more efficacious and we get better results when a clinical psychologist and a psychiatrist they work hand in hand. We get better results. And then the clinical psychologists also come on board with their own psychological therapies. These are also evidence-based. These are far researched methods of helping people. So you have the cognitive behavioral therapy, and in that way you're helping an individual to change. You're changing behaviors in an individual based on how they are thinking. There is more to it, but these are as layman as I can explain them. You also have cognitive restructuring, because such people, when such things happen to them, they develop some patterns of thinking that do not favor them. So what a cognitive restructuring will do is to help them to look for better ways of thinking and better ways of analyzing whatever it is that they went through and developing healthier perspectives to what happened to them. All right. They also help them to develop coping mechanisms that are adaptive, that are positive. So, rather than take alcohol so that you can forget your problems, there are ways to cope, either by talking about it or by writing it down or by, you can even pray about it and all of that. There's so many other positive ways that you can deal and cope. So these are things that, a clinical psychologist together with a psychiatrist can do. There's also the prolonged exposure. Even though the person went through that trauma and, the default thing is to run away from it, there are ways of bringing such situations back to that person to let them know that this happened that time. It doesn't mean that it's something that is going to continue to happen. And you can learn to control your reactions, your fear and your fright, the fright to such situations, So there are different, methods like that. There's another one called the EMDR, rapid eye movement, rapid desensitization therapy or something like that. It's also a very, it's a specialized treatment form of intervention, and you need to be very well versed for you to be, administer it in a patient. And it's also important for people to know that people can, situations can be worsened if you go to the wrong place. That's the truth. If it's not managed by people who are skilled, who are experienced, who are trained, who are professionals for that disorder, you can worsen whatever your situation is, and you can make the problem to endure for even longer than it would endure. So it's important that you go to the right place when you're seeking help.
And that's a wrap on today's episode. Make a conscious effort to focus on positive situations in life. Remember, health is wealth. I'm Jennifer Anigwe. Bye for now.
One night in Los Angeles, while drinking and having fun, he took out his hand like, "Hey dude, let's race to the first $1 million." Race for $1 million. That's an aggressive race. But you know what? just because I didn't like the guy, I really took on the race, seriously. 5 years after we had the handshake, I think I was 28. I'm like, man, now I have more than $1 million in my bank. I think I want to call that guy. And then actually he came. I picked him up with the Range Rover, nice. I was asking him, so what are you doing now, man? You get that $1 million yet? He said no. And then it made me feel good. Oh, this is what it feels like. Defeating, people that you hate. So I just kept on going, And I had houses, I had properties, I had a few apartments. Oh, I counted, I had like 15 cars or something, 6, 7 Harleys at the time, and then just toys in my garage, and then I could buy anything I want, and then I had everything that everybody else wanted. Man, I feel like I'm on top of my world. But how come there is such a big fear? How do I not become afraid? And because the fear is just not pleasant. Is this really going to last forever? And then I had accumulated much to the point where all I thought was just myself.
I remember one person had to die because of my greed. And the whole family suffered. Oh God.
An old man owed me money, Then he gave me a check. Check is good for next week. Following week, I took it to the bank and it bounced. I go, okay, promise you, next week. Promise. Okay. To see him the next week, still didn't have money. So he lied to me 3 times. And then there was ego talking, it was not about money anymore, Couldn't care less about money. But, just don't do that to me. Brought my bouncer with me, my hitman. I destroyed his office. And then smashing things. The guy was so scared, he was smoking, he lit up a cigarette. He was so old, fragile, old and gray and bent and shaking. There I was, I was still young, tough. And I was so happy, just his office was destroyed, tables split in 2 and chairs, I went home. Next day I found out he died, heart attack. All for $5,000. What have I become? It should have been me. I just made a promise that the rest of my life I just choose to do good things for other people. That's it. Indonesia has already it's a developing country, and then my village where I live is probably one of the underdeveloped villages. I'm not saying you have to sell your houses, your cars and everything. Well, that's what I did, but I'm not imposing the values to other people. That's what I needed to do. What I'm saying is maybe there's somebody that needs to build whatever, the houses or irrigation system or something or anything. There's a need, in their village. You go out, you be the answer to the need. I think the true happiness is when you start to empty yourself a little bit more and more, and more the next day. Giving is actually the key to happiness. We bring different values to young people that maybe that are really becoming addicted with selfishness. You go ask young people, say, what do you want to do in life, man? I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. Why? To make a lot of money. I say, I tell my children, if there's time, there's money, you become doctors. When you graduate, you become anything. You go out to the villages, go help serve people who cannot repay you at all. And it gives me such satisfaction. Now we have a clinic down there, with the whole village. We fix their teeth, we clean them up, and and then they come back home like, oh, I've been suffering for years. I have no money to go to the doctors and everything. Now, thank God, now I have you. They're happy because of your presence, because of your service that you do.
Punya keberanian, ya, untuk mempunyai kerendahan hati, mau belajar, menyatakan bahwa oke, saya orang muda, saya perlu belajar karena I'm not that smart, ya. Karena kita banyak perlu, we have to learn many things. Ini perlu kerendahan hati.
Kenapa? Karena gini, kamu tuh jadi manusia tuh harus punya sesuatu yang kamu mau. Ngerti nggak? Achievement. Kamu mau apa?
Yes, we teach the young people to be successful in everything, but before they become successful financially, I think it's good for them to have a good foundations of morale, which is actually not about self. It's about giving to other people, empowering, being beneficial to other people. Your presence need to benefit other people. That's how you're going to create the balanced society. It's actually contagious. When you go inspire somebody else, they become inspired, they want to do something else. Why is it really important? Well, because there's so much suffering in this world, because everybody serves themselves. Selflessness is really the key. The fear, it's not there anymore. Yeah, there's really nothing to be afraid of. 10 years ago and beyond, happiness can only be defined by the feeling of having something that nobody else has. That was my happiness. Winning the race in life. It's completely opposite. It's towards fulfilling somebody else's dream.
Apa itu di dalam? Makanan ya?
The togetherness and doing something different, for other people, really is what's going to unite your family even more. Live a simpler life.
An entrepreneur in the world, Lady, Chief, Mrs., Queen, Duchess, Princess, who's Princess too, Ronkus. mistake, one of the models fell on you. And a very sexy girl, one of the sexy long-legged models, just fell right into your lap.
Yeah, I would find an excuse to keep her a couple of minutes there.
I like that. Very well said. Remind me to push one of the models to you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
The first half of the show, we have to kickstart the first half. And then, of course, the grand finale, which is going to put fashion at its full stop. Come with me. Come. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, as I proceed to take the show to the next level, because this is the ministry of all. Like I said earlier, I can't wait to see the collection on stage tonight. Remember, it's the first half of the African Fashion Week Nigeria, and we're looking forward to her, Tiana's Styling Academy, the Fashion Academy. Let's see what the students are putting up. Are they going to bounce me? Come, let's find out. If they bounce me here, I will match them with my shoe. Come. Are we welcome? You're welcome. As you see, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to fashion, it's an easy getaway. Let's go in. Alrighty. Alright, the show is about to start, ladies and gentlemen. Let me go get my front row seats, and I will be back on the red carpet for the second half. Yeah.
I'm done talking.